Tonight, NYPD officers descending on Columbia University, arresting dozens of pro-Palestinian protesters.
I'm just sitting here. Why are you doing this to me?
Police, some in riot gear, moving in at the request of the university's president.
You won't believe what's happening in New York. Pro-Palestinian demonstrators are back yet again. Hundreds of protesters already arrested, locked up, and facing severe consequences. Riot shields everywhere, and the NYPD taking drastic action.
A stunning scene at Columbia University in New York today. Police in riot gear moving in to clear an encampment of students protesting the war in Gaza. Dozens arrested.
This is just the beginning of stopping the pro-Palestinian protest at the Columbia University in New York City, with government officials getting extremely tired of know-it-all students trespassing and creating chaos with protest encampments. They've decided to round them all up, even including a Democratic congresswoman's daughter, hoping to put an end to the madness. But this hasn't been the case.
Late today, demonstrators shutting down streets around the school.
More protesters than ever resume demonstrations, begging questions about what means the city must use to end this insanity. And can authorities justify the use of force against what started as a peaceful protest?
It's day 3 of protests at Columbia University, as demonstrations on campus and off appear to grow.
Free Palestine!
This bold step challenges NYC, known for its promise to welcome all. With pledges to guarantee a place for everyone, the city faces a real test managing the chaos. It's a moment that asks, what happens when NYC meets yet another protest? And at what point will this madness come to an end? Stick around as we delve deeper into the mental protest situation at Columbia University and the lengths the government will undergo. The protest.
Students are protesting Israeli military action in Gaza and demanding the school divest from companies who are involved with Israel.
Tensions are running high at Columbia University, and here's why. The citizens of NYC are up in arms, as a series of pro-Palestinian protests have led to the mass arrests of over 100 participants, including prominent figures and students, sparking chaos on the streets, making residents feel unsafe. But the number of protesters is skyrocketing after the arrests.
This protest certainly not losing any steam. In fact, we're watching the crowds outside grow bigger right before our eyes.
The heart of their unrest, the core of their frustration lies in what they perceive as an assault on free speech and the right to assembly, principles they believe should be safeguarded, not quashed in brutal police actions and government responses.
More than 100 people arrested on the campus of Columbia University. The pro-Palestinian protesters forcefully removed by the NYPD as they occupied the main lawn.
Stay tuned as we delve into immense details of the savage police measures in just a moment. The contention spirals further when discussing the university's policies.
It comes just 24 hours after the president of Columbia was grilled on Capitol Hill over her handling of anti-Semitism on campus.
The newly implemented guidelines restricting protest times and locations are seen as a direct provocation. Students argue these policies not only infringe on their rights, but also disrupt the educational ethos supposed to foster critical thought and civic engagement, colliding strictly with basic American law. The protests, initially sparked by opposition to Israeli actions in Gaza, have quickly escalated into a government versus protester clash over civil liberties, drawing the eyes of the entire globe. With the situation evolving rapidly, one question remains at the forefront: how will this end? The arrests.
Dozens of pro-Palestinian protesters at Columbia University have been arrested.
The situation intensified dramatically with the mass arrests of 113 individuals, including students and a notable congresswoman's daughter, all linked to the pro-Palestinian protests.
Police started making arrests earlier this afternoon on a makeshift tent city that pro-Palestinian demonstrators had set up on Columbia's quad.
This move by the NYPD, sanctioned by the university, has sparked a firestorm of controversy.
The NYPD, some officers in riot gear descending on Columbia, arresting dozens of pro-Palestinian demonstrators. It comes after the university president was called before Congress to address accusations of anti-Semitism on campus.
The core of the outrage centers around how a peaceful sit-in could escalate to such a dramatic conclusion. Participants described the protest as non-violent, with demonstrators merely linking arms in solidarity on the university's south lawn. Despite this, the NYPD intervened with brutal force, leading to scenes of students being zip-tied and handcuffed. With each day, the chaos grows. But how did this all start? Why are they protesting? Are they just know-it-all woke students? Similar situations, like the one at Columbia University, are happening all across the U.S.
Officers appear to be taking some of the people into custody. We saw them.
Stick around as we delve into even more controversy. Golden Gate protest.
Pro-Palestinian protesters have staged a demonstration that has shut down the Golden Gate Bridge.
Chaos reigns at the iconic Golden Gate Bridge, where a dramatic showdown unfolded between protesters and law enforcement. Early on a Monday morning, pro-Palestinian demonstrators executed a bold move that brought traffic to a complete standstill, effectively shutting down the bridge for several hours. This audacious action was part of a broader economic blockade aimed at highlighting the perceived complicity of the global economy in the ongoing conflict in Gaza. Authorities scrambled to manage the disruption as the protest closed both northbound and southbound lanes, creating a gridlock nightmare. Commuters found themselves trapped, with traffic backed up through the Robin Williams Tunnel and beyond Sausalito on southbound 101. The situation escalated as the California Highway Patrol, CHP, reported that protesters were using chains concealed in pipes to link themselves together, complicating the efforts to clear the bridge. This strategy not only delayed the reopening of the bridge, but also led to 26 arrests, with charges ranging from unlawful assembly to impeding an officer. Seattle-Tacoma airport protest.
Pro-Palestine protesters have blocked access to SeaTac Airport.
Drama unfolded near Seattle-Tacoma International Airport as a planned pro-Palestinian demonstration effectively blocked major roadways, creating significant disruption and chaos. Here's the scoop. On a bustling Monday afternoon, the group A15 Seattle orchestrated a major disruption right at the airport's doorstep. Protesters utilized the sleeping dragon technique, where participants lock arms inside PVC pipes, making it difficult and risky for police to disperse the crowd without causing injury. This method slowed down the police response significantly, underscoring the protesters' determination to make their voices heard and the madness of the situation. Authorities arrested 46 individuals, with charges including disorderly conduct and failure to disperse, both misdemeanors. These arrests brought the expressway to a standstill, preventing access to the airport and causing a ripple effect of delays. This protest is just one of many recent disruptions in the Seattle area, as activists continue to call for an end to U.S. arms support for Israel. The demonstrators' message is clear. They seek to challenge economic structures they believe support ongoing conflicts abroad, and they will only keep going, even when the government shuts them down. Begging the question, how far will the situation go to make it stop? Will it end in a massive clash or even a battle? Now let's get back to Columbia University. Why is the protest even happening? Background.
You don't think there's evidence of anti-Semitism among professors on your faculty?
We have seen some cases, and there have been consequences.
The roots of the protests at Columbia University trace back to a deep-seated frustration among students over the ongoing conflict in Gaza. The demonstrators have been vocal in their criticism of Israeli military actions and what they describe as the university's complicit financial investments in companies that benefit from these actions. This dissatisfaction came to a head when students set up an overnight encampment on the university's south lawn, a visual and physical manifestation of their protest. This encampment was not merely a gathering spot, but a symbol of the students' commitment to their cause, equipped with tents and signs, drawing attention to their demands for the university to divest from these companies and to openly support Palestinian rights. The administration's response to this encampment was swift and firm, citing violations of newly implemented demonstration policies that restrict protests to certain times and areas with prior approval. The university called in the NYPD to dismantle the protest. This, of course, infuriated the demonstrating students. But what do they have to say? And who are they? Student perspectives and voices. The voices of the students involved in the Columbia University protests are filled a sense of injustice over the university's response to their demonstrations. Among them, many express a profound anger, not just about the global issues they are protesting, but also about their treatment by an institution they believed would support their right to speak out. Elliot, a 25-year-old graduate student who uses they/them pronouns, became a prominent voice in the aftermath of the arrests. Their narrative captures a sentiment of betrayal and resilience as they describe the peaceful nature of the protest. Students sitting in a circle, linking arms, symbolizing unity and peaceful resistance. The reality of being arrested under such circumstances, Elliot points out, only strengthened their resolve and belief in the morality of their cause. Government response. The government's approach to the protests at Columbia University has been marked by firm action, reflecting the struggle to balance order and the right to protest. Directed by the NYPD and urged by university officials, police dismantled the student encampment and arrested those who resisted dispersal. The mayor underscored the importance of protests in democracy, but stressed that they should not disrupt the university's educational mission or break its rules. The NYPD commissioner called the arrests peaceful, asserting that officers acted professionally, a claim contested by students who viewed the police response as overly aggressive for a peaceful demonstration. This clash of perceptions underlines the broader debate about appropriate law enforcement responses to protests. Behind the scenes, the mayor and city officials are engaging with university administrators, student leaders, and community stakeholders, aiming to prevent further conflicts and balance student activism with campus safety. This scenario at Columbia University raises essential questions about authority and civil liberties, particularly in educational settings, where the line between maintaining order and suppressing rights can blur. It mirrors larger national conversations about managing protests, reflecting deep societal divisions and challenges in preserving civil liberties amid security concerns. University's response. Columbia University's administration, under President Nemat Minouche-Shafik, has taken a firm stance on the recent protests, emphasizing the need to uphold campus safety and order while balancing free expression. President Shafik has been clear in communications that the protesters, despite multiple warnings, violated university policies by trespassing and damaging property, necessitating enforcement actions, including new restrictions on demonstrations. These actions are part of a broader strategy to maintain the university's operational integrity and safety for all students and staff. The administration has implemented specific policies for protests, such as designating areas and times for demonstrations and requiring prior approval, aiming to minimize disruption to educational activities. However, these policies have sparked debate among students and faculty, with critics arguing that they overly restrict free speech and stifle dissent. In response to the ongoing protests, the administration has also emphasized its commitment to dialogue, offering to engage with student groups to address their concerns. Yet, many students feel that the decision to involve the police contradicts these offers, indicating a disconnect between administrative strategies and student expectations for meaningful engagement. This complex situation at Columbia highlights the challenges educational institutions face in managing campus activism, with internal criticism from faculty further stressing the contentious nature of the administration's approach. Legal and ethical considerations. The protests at Columbia University highlight critical legal and ethical issues related to academic freedom, the right to protest, and institutional authority. Legally, the conflict centers on balancing Columbia's private property rights with students' First Amendment rights. While private institutions like Columbia have the authority to set campus rules, they must also respect students' rights to free speech and assembly, raising questions about the application of trespassing laws and the spaces where students can protest. The use of trespassing laws is particularly contentious, with critics suggesting that Columbia may be using these laws more to suppress dissent than to protect property. The peaceful nature of the protests also raises concerns about whether the police response was proportionate, potentially influencing how similar future protests are handled legally. Ethically, the university's actions test its commitment to fostering an environment conducive to critical thinking and civic engagement. Academic institutions are expected to be free expression hubs where students learn to engage with societal issues. By involving police in peaceful protests, Columbia risks deterring students from exercising their speech and assembly rights due to fear of repercussions. Additionally, there are ethical concerns about the university's duty of care, especially in light of reports about the physical and emotional distress students experienced during arrests. This prompts reflection on whether the university is meeting its responsibility to ensure a safe learning environment. These complexities demand a nuanced approach, urging universities to carefully consider their policies and practices to balance free speech and assembly with safety and order, ensuring legal compliance and maintaining trust within the academic community. National reaction. The Columbia University protests have stirred widespread discussions, reflecting the complex social, political, and ethical issues involved. Locally, reactions are mixed. Some New Yorkers and nearby residents support the students and their stance on Palestinian rights, while others are concerned about disruptions like increased police presence and noise. Community groups, local activists, and alumni have joined the protests, increasing their scope and visibility. Nationally, the protests have ignited debates on free speech, the role of higher education in political activism, and student protest rights. Civil liberties organizations have criticized the university and NYPD's handling of the protests, citing potential constitutional rights violations and have offered legal support to arrested students. Politicians and public figures have voiced diverse opinions, ranging from support for student protests to backing the university's emphasis on order and policy adherence. The media's extensive coverage has been pivotal in shaping public opinion, with stories and editorials discussing the university's actions and the protesters' demands. This coverage has fueled further debate on social media, where related hashtags have trended, amplifying the discourse. The situation has also prompted other institutions to reevaluate their protest policies, potentially leading to broader changes in how protests are managed nationwide. Additionally, the academic community and international observers have analyzed the protests within the broader context of global political movements and academic freedom, showcasing the significant social and political implications of the events at Columbia. Broader impact. The Columbia University protests mark a critical juncture in the discussion on free speech and activism within academia, underscoring significant questions about the responsibilities of educational institutions in promoting civic engagement. Central to the controversy is the nature of free speech in academic settings, particularly in light of the university's police involvement and restrictive policies. Critics worry these measures may discourage student protests, dampening free expression nationwide. The situation highlights the tension between maintaining safe learning environments and fostering open dialogue. The Columbia incident vividly illustrates these challenges and has spurred student activists across the country to demand changes to institutional protest policies, potentially fostering a broader movement for safeguarding student expression rights. The protests have also stimulated debate on the role of student activism in societal change, emphasizing the need for robust support systems for student activists, including legal aid and civil disobedience training. In response, universities might reassess their policies on demonstrations, aiming to balance safety with respect for free speech. Moreover, this has spurred a push for greater transparency in university policymaking, with a call for more student involvement in decisions that affect their rights to organize and protest. The Columbia protests have not only ignited a national conversation on the role of higher education in democracy, but have also prompted a reevaluation of how these institutions embody democratic values in their policies and actions. This evolving discourse is reshaping academic culture, influencing how future generations of students perceive and interact with the world, and challenging universities to live up to the democratic ideals they teach. But this hasn't been the case. More protesters than ever resume demonstrations, begging questions about what means the city must use to end this insanity. And can authorities justify the use of force against what started as a peaceful protest?